Hey all, and welcome into the newest Game Dev Diary. This is for July 2025. This is for the project Transient Eye, which I've been developing for a few months now. It's a time loop mystery game where you use your time looping abilities to interrogate people and figure out all the mysteries in a cathedral sort of setting in the fantasy world that I'm writing. These are my inspirations. And let's get into the progress points. There's not too much in the way of progress that I can show you. It's been a lot of writing this month, as I have a collaborator working on the project with me. It's sort of become my necessitated a way to share all of what I've written for this fancy world, because it is a lot. All of the races and the magic systems and the history of the world, it's all very important to have some sort of, gisted document. So when I'm looking at this world, I've sort of just been writing it without too much of a pinpointed like theme of what I'm going for. I sort of know what I generally want, but I've not really sat down and written down what I really like want to focus on, because I've always thought about it, but I've never really been able to really nail down what it wants to be. And I'll take into account some other franchises. Elder Scrolls is a fancy sandbox. It's very accessible. You don't really need to know too much about the world to know how it works. You follow the quest markers. You have dragons and gods, and that's the important thing. The Witcher, look, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to dunk on The Witcher. I don't like the way CD Projekt Red writes the worlds. Cyberpunk was a bit better than Witcher, I'd say, but in the Witcher world, everything sucks, everybody dies, everything's a tragedy. Also, we're going to sexualize every character we possibly can. Um, Thumbs up, yeah. But with The Witcher, in analyzing why I dislike it, it really lets me shine a light on some of the other franchises which I do like, which are also like very depressing and everything sucks sort of worlds, like Warhammer 40k and Dark Souls. I think the difference is the feeling it is supposed to invoke in you, the reader or player. In Dark Souls, everything sucks, but you are trying to create something bigger. The Dark Souls is not built on there being difficult bosses. It's built on the feeling of defeating and overcoming those difficult bosses and the sense of achievement after that. In 40k, everything sucks, like horrendously. It's the originator of the term grimdark. But within that, you have so many badass characters, and they're doing all of this crazy stuff, and there's a sort of comedy to it as well. It's a satire of like, oh, the Empire of Man has these angels of death, these demigods, and they have to go through all of the bureaucratic processes of the Imperium, which are so outdated, but it's so normal at this point that they can't they can't go against it. So there's a bit of comedy there, and it's also like very sort of empowering. You get to play the villain, and you get to have fun just destroying things. I put Game of Thrones. I've not seen Game of Thrones, but you get the sort of gist of what the world is. A lot of plot scheming, war, and it's very character based as well. So I'm cherry picking sort of what I want from these settings to create something of my own. I want that ease of accessibility that the Elder Scrolls has, as well as this idea of like divinity and human nature. And, you know, the way that they interact is important. You'll be hard pressed to go to look through history and not find a large amount of war, power struggles, and political scheming. And I think a big part of what I wanted to draw on was this idea of the decisions that we make and the morality of the world not quite being as black and white as people want to say it is. And I certainly don't want a uber depressing world, because at the end of the day, you know, Elder Scrolls is high fantasy, Witcher is low fantasy, and it's, you have high fantasy and low fantasy, but you also have dark fantasy, right? And they're not mutually exclusive. Like, I'd say that Elder Scrolls is high fantasy, Witcher is low and dark fantasy, Dark Souls is high and dark fantasy, if you get what I'm sort of saying. And low fantasy just means, you know, magic is not really prominent in the world or as much. It's very much a scarcity, which is not the case in the other two worlds. I want a high fantasy world with potentially some dark elements. You know, there's never going to be like, you know, a completely you know, everything sucks dark world, or is not going to be a sunshine and magic and fairies sort of world, you know? So that's the sort of thing I'm going for. I'm doing like a chronological timeline, which is actually like very tough, because you sort of have the ideas of what the events you want to have happen, but you can't really write events in a world without having all of your like characters in, and, you know, their motivations and like how would they interact with each other, and then putting dates to that, and then you have to like worry about the ages of your characters when they die, when it's a lot of like very conscious thinking that you have to do. Like, what does this event being put here have an effect on like the world, and does that coincide with the themes that you're trying to communicate? So here's a small snapshot of what I've done. I've tried to split it into eras, so like E, F, E, you know, alphabetical. Keep it simple, so it's easily communicable to the person. Like, what time are we thinking of, or like what timeline are we thinking compared to other events in the world that we're aware of? And, you know, in history, when you're looking at things, like everything happens for a reason. And, you know, if you take like, I don't know, World War II, why did World War II happen? Because Germany invaded Poland. Why did Germany invade Poland? Well, you know, daisy chain it for, you know, to Italy, rise of fascism, and then you go back to World War One. Why did World War One happen? Because the Austro-Hungarian Empire was expanding and nobody was happy with them. Take it back even further and further, and, you know, you have a daisy chain of events from the start of time. And that's how history goes. So you have to have that causal link between events, which I'm trying to preserve. But, you know, instead of having a causal link between events, you're sort of creating causality after you have an event. It's not like A and B happened that caused C to happen. You're like, okay, C happened, let's create B and A such that C makes sense. You know, it's, you're working backwards, and it's a bit strange, but it's enjoyable. And you'll see in this this snapshot, you know, I have the races at the top, the Mordred, which are like your basic humans, the Dracir, which are like dragons, and the Avril, which are like birds. And the dragons and the birds don't get along, so like they have. You see the third Sky War, they've been going at it for a while, and they're like major rivals. And then you have like certain events which are like, oh, the entire world has to stop and deal with this, like the first Void Incursion was like a global conflict. But then you have important events for certain races. So the Mordred is the namesake of that race. They landed in the continent at the start of this era, and they spread around, and the two brothers had a fight. And that's sort of a backdrop to all of the Mordred history in that region. So it's been fun to figure that out, and it will require a lot more effort to sort of figure that out, and that will link perfectly into how I'm doing my characters, which I have a very large spreadsheet where I've segmented it out to like 2,600 divided by 50. It's what 260 divided by 5, 10, 50, 50 some odd pages, 53 some odd pages of like these like character templates. Name, race, date of birth, morality, likes, dislikes, goals, dreams, fears. I have, an Excel sheet, 50 of these per page, and they're sort of categorized into races and timelines and factions and whatnot. So I can, sort of see for each character what makes them move, what's a short like bio of what they've done, why they're doing it, what's their impact on the world, where they are, how like likely they are to compromise their own ideals. That's the corruption on the right, 65. And this is a character that is, the Eminent Inquisitor that's going to be in this game. So that's why I took this one specifically. And you have like a date of birth there, and I've left that blank for so many of these characters. And I'm like, I don't have the exact timeline of everything yet. Because it's very hard when you're creating a world like this to not like hop around, You can't just draw the map, You have to know, oh, I sort of want there to be a city here. And what that city here means is that it's an important trade route. So I need to make the map in a way where that city would be an important trade route. Like it would be on the sea. It would be like a central area that can access all of the other areas. And like, oh, you jump to the characters, and oh, I want to write a mage. Oh, how am I going to write a mage? I haven't made the magic system yet. So I need to go make the magic system. But oh, when I'm making the magic system, I realized, oh, I need to know how magic exists in this world. I was like, oh, we'll go back to the gods, and we're back to characters again. So it's like a hopping around everything. You have to sort of fill up every glass like 10% each time, and eventually you're going to have 10 full glasses. But it takes a while. But speaking on that magic system, this is sort of what I'm working with at the moment. This star is one that I've drawn as a sort of representation of my magic system. So I wanted a sort of a soft magic system with hard magic rules. Magic can sort of do anything you want it to, but it has rules that allow it to interact with the world, and make it more interesting. Like, it's not going to be like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where everybody has one element. They do that by doing martial arts, and they can only do so much, you know. And in that way, everybody is sort of on a level playing field. It's a good system. It's just not what I'm really going for. At the same time, I don't want a really soft magic system where it's just sort of like Skyrim, where oh, you have magicka and you cast spells. That's pretty fun. You can do a spell for pretty much anything. There are certain like schools of magic, but you can learn any of them. There's no restrictions. So yeah, this is what I landed on. It's a pseudo elemental magic system. So instead of there being 8 elements, instead there are 8 schema. And schema are basically, they're associated with an element, but they incorporate they're incorporations of qualities. Like if you want some, a schema for a permanence or solid spells that, have large amounts of force, then you go for the material schema, and that is associated with the element of rock. If you want, something that is impermanent and ephemeral, and has to do with speed of casting and the speed of a user, then you go for the transient schema, which is associated with the element of air. And each of these 8 elements have sort of qualities around them, and they're also associated with a element, and each of them are associated with a race. And when considering a magic system, you want it to interact with the world, right? You want there to be some sort of in-world consequences for the use of magic, as well as upper limits and the ways that magic is utilized in creative ways. So if, for example, the bird people, they've mastered levitation magic or something like that. So what would they do with that? Oh, maybe they make a city that floats, and that's like a fortress that nobody can really penetrate because they can't get that high. Stuff like that. How does magic differ between mages and magic institutions is important. Like, how does an individual mage that just they're living on a farm and they've just discovered they can do all of this stuff, how does that differ from a magic school or a university where they're trying to sort of teach magic in a standardized way? Or perhaps a military, how does a military use magic? How do people detect mages? How do people counter mages? How do different races cast spells differently? And a lot of those stories I've had to flesh out from this fuzzy zone of I'm not quite sure what's going on to this is how it is, so I can communicate it to anybody who is interested in the world. So yeah, that's sort of what I have been working on this month. It's not anything specific to the game, unfortunately, but it is vital for the ongoing health of the universe that I'm trying to create. And in that way, I'm very pleased with what I have been able to achieve. As for next month, I still need to finish this this document of everything the world is. So in that way, I'll be probably doing this for next month as well, and then we can, in earnest, return to the project and continue with a 3D model and writing the specific characters and quests, and properly scoping the project. But until then, this has been me. Thank you all for watching, and if you're interested, if you have any questions about the world or anything that you want answered, then feel free to drop a line in the comments. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.